What's up everyone, how are we all doing? Today I'm going to be making a video on 5 quick tips to improve your videos instantly. So you want to know how to improve your videos instantly? Well, it's actually pretty easy because there's just a few things that you need to adjust in order to make your videos look better. The first tip is actually what triggered this video and made me make this video, which is frame rates. Recently I saw a commercial and it was actually a pretty high-end commercial, but what I did see in that commercial was mixing frame rates. It sounds a little bit fancy, but it's really not. Basically what happened is that the commercial was shot in 24 frames per second, but it appears that it was exported in 60 frames per second. So in one end of the video was shown in 24 frames per second, but then the editor made a speed ramp, and if you don't know what a speed ramp is, I actually made a tutorial on that, so feel free to go check that out. He made a speed ramp, and because he speeds the clip up, he actually increases the frame rate. And then because he exported in 60 frames per second, he actually went from showing a clip in 24 frames per second, and then it went up to 60 frames per second, which, to be completely honest, looks very amateur-like, if you know what I'm saying. So the thing is, please get your frame rates right. If you want to have something that looks cinematic, record in 24 frames per second. If you want to get some slow motion, you can shoot in 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second, even 240 frames per second if you have that. As long as you slow it down and export it in 24 frames per second. Just make sure to get your frame rates right. Real time 24 frames per second, everything above is for slow motion. And then you also make sure to export it in 24 frames per second, because otherwise things like speed ramps can really ruin your look, because we already talked about this. Anyways, let's move into the next one. The next one is specifically targeted for B-roll. When shooting B-roll, then make sure to go wide. I mean, just 1 or 2 times. This is something that I'm still struggling with, because as soon as you go to 50 or 85, it just looks so good and you get those bokeh balls and it just looks extremely crispy. But you gotta remember to go wide so we can actually see the environment in the B-roll segment, because if you just go into 85 from the beginning to the end, you're gonna be way too narrow and it's not really gonna show the actual environment. Basically what I'm saying is that you could perhaps add a wide shot to begin with, so you have a little environment description. So even though B-roll's main function for the majority of us is just to look good, it should also serve the story. So if you want to do that, you gotta make sure to go wide and describe the environment. So yeah, that's a quick tip. Let's move on. Another tip that actually goes along with tip number 2 is planning your shots. I've come to the stage where I've done a few B-roll segments, so I definitely know the difference between planning a B-roll segment and not planning it at all. To be a little bit more specific, you don't have to go to your computer and write everything down to the last detail. If you're just shooting a vlog like I usually am, that would be way too time consuming and it's not necessary at all. I've tried it and I don't feel like it's necessary at all. What I mean by planning is, before you shoot your B-roll segment, at least know what you're shooting, and then, you know, actually take a look at what you're shooting and then think, okay, I could do this and this and this. Peter McKinnon made a pretty good video about this. He called it the B-roll challenge. I thought about entering, but I guess I was too lazy, so I didn't really do that. Basically what it was is that you go to a pretty normal and boring environment, and then you just look around and say, okay, how can I possibly make this into a B-roll segment? So you just go around and you look around the environment and say, okay, how can I make a B-roll segment that actually makes sense in this environment? And then you plan from there. It doesn't have to be extremely specific, and that's definitely gonna help your B-roll segment at least make it, not necessarily make it look better, but making the B-roll segment actually mean something, so it serves the vlog or film, or, you know. Next one. The next tip is about movement. It's personal preference, but personally I think that movement is key, at least in terms of B-roll, because I guess we're just talking B-roll now. Movement is very essential to make your B-roll pop. It makes it more dynamic, and it just overall, in my personal opinion, makes it look a lot better. So yeah, this is mostly personal preference, but you could try and do it. So if you're wondering why it looks a little bit boring, there's not really much happening, maybe it's because your shots are too static, you just put them on a tripod, try and actually move the camera around and see if that's something that you like. Personally, it's something that I like, so perhaps it's something that could help you as well. The last one, and I actually think I'm gonna make a full tutorial on this as well, is editing to the music. Something that's so underrated because, you know, it's just in the back of my mind. I just can naturally do it. I can't not do it. It just feels wrong. It's not really something that you notice when you watch a good B-roll segment. You don't really notice, oh, he hit that right on with the beat. You don't really notice that. It just comes naturally, and it's all about the flow. You don't really notice it, but you do notice it in the back of your head. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Anyways, it's all about the flow. So if you edit to the beat, it's gonna give you a lot better flow, and overall, a better flow is just gonna make you better overall. Just like if you were a rapper. I don't know. Anyways, so that was it for this video. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope you can use some of these tips, and I hope it's gonna improve your overall content, mostly B-roll, but overall content. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out my Instagram, my Twitter, and all of that. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you guys with another video at some point in time. So goodbye.